Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jodo Cast, your Star Wars gaming podcast. This is episode 151. My name is Evan Lewis. I am, of course, joined by Leo Andry.
Hello.
And Joe Latovsky.
Ahoy.
And Kurt Larson.
Hey.
And we are always thrilled to be joined by our patrons joining us tonight in Discord chat live in front of a live studio audience as we're recording.
Look at the size of that crowd.
Yeah,
look at all of them out there. Look at it.
They're
Sit down. It's fine. Yeah.
And
they're so loud. Simmer down.
Give it up for the band, for the Tonight Show band. Who would our band be?
Probably.
Simon?
There's like only two bands
Paul
in Star
Schaefer.
Wars. There's Max Rebo and Big
one.
Rin Dan.
I mean, Max Rebo is like
and
usually chiller.
The band from Tatooine Rhapsody.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
There's the band from
the
Maz's
reggae
Castle.
band. Yeah.
The Lin-Manuel Miranda band.
There's the singing lady in Solo, and she has like the little guy in the jar with her. They're classy.
There you go. All right, and speaking of patrons joining us tonight in Discord chat, that is just one of the cool things that our patrons get to do. So if you want to find out more about becoming a patron or just joining our community, you can go over to patreon.com/thejodocast or go to jodocast.com and you can find all of our social media links, including our Discord, which I've mentioned several times because it's pretty fantastic. You don't have to be a patron to join the Discord. You just need to be an awesome person. That's pretty much the only requirement.
Yeah, it's always popping off.
It is.
People are going crazy.
People going crazy. That's how we like to describe our Discord.
But in a good way, not like a scary way.
No, it's like Beatles Mania in the Discord. People just typing squee. Anytime they see us that we're online, they just start typing whatever noises all the girls and women made for the Beatles.
Yep, all those girl and women noises.
But the onomatopoeia typed out. That's what it's like. It's a hard life being us.
Yeah, all day, every day. And that having been said, I think it's time for that biggest of questions. What you been playing? I'll go first because outside of Fire Emblem, not a lot else. And that's not Star Wars. So
the new Fire Emblem or an old one?
I am catching up. I am very deep on Fire Emblem Awakenings on the DS, and then I did start Three Houses, but not even close to Engage.
They should do a Star Wars Fire Emblem, though. Like, you have like Saw's partisans, and you're like maneuvering around Jeddah. That would be cool. Like Mimban or something.
There's so many. It's not
Intensify
exactly Fire
forward
Emblem,
Fire Emblem.
I was gonna say like an XCOM clone would be terrific for early Rebellion story. But hey, that's what I've been playing. Besides painting miniatures, that's really the extent of my Star Warsing is painting miniatures. Who's up next? Who wants to jump in? Just easier if you jump straight in.
Sure. I played some Legion the other day for the first time in months and months and months.
And you won.
And no, I did not win, but I had a lot of fun. I got to try out some of the mercenary units that came out last year. You know, I put them in a rebel list, and it was fun to try them out. I played some objectives I hadn't done before, and it was good to shake the rust off a little bit and try out the new rules. Climbing was very fun.
Ask. So, like, first experience overall, like, okay, just feels like old hat.
Yeah, I mean, mostly it wasn't too different from normal. We climbed a lot more than normal, which was good. Scale is not good anymore. It'd be nice if they improved that at the same time they improved the climb. Panicking was different, not really better or worse, but overall it was good. Yeah, I liked it. Want to play again sometime. And that's all I've been playing.
No, it's still more than me.
And I think since the last time we've been playing, I wrapped up my Legion League. So,
and you won.
We weren't really tracking wins and losses so much. We were just sort of doing a round.
That's how I need
That's
to
what
play.
a winner would
we
say.
don't really count who.
That's what a humble winner would say.
There wasn't really much for prizes up on this one, so it didn't really matter too much.
Was it like a full 800 point league or skirmish league or what?
We did the first couple rounds using the dynamic exit scenario. Everyone did one round as red player and one round as blue player. So you got to experience both sides of that, and that was fun. And then the last 2 rounds of the league, we just did normal 800 point lists.
Any standout factions or units that really dominated?
Well, the first time I played the scenario, my opponent played a rebel list with a bunch of mercenaries. He had pikes, and he had he had Black Sun in there and stuff. But he didn't realize that the scenario also reduces the range of all weapons by 1. So that reduced Black Suns down to range 1 and stuff. And it was just in general, he got really screwed by not realizing that there was going to be that range reduction. But yeah, no, that was pretty fun. And we got a tournament coming up here in about a week here in Fargo that I'll be judging for.
Ooh, you're good at being judgy.
Well, it's guys who normally they run some 40K tournaments, and they just reached out to me and they're like, we want to have a few tables of Legion at this tournament. Would you judge? And I said, okay. So I've got to sit down and
that's awesome.
I've got to sit down and actually read through the rule book again here, because I haven't gone over the updated rules quite as much as I should have. So so I gotta. Luckily, I'll have LegionQuickGuide.com available.
Every time someone calls for judge, you say, okay, that'll be $5 for this judgment, and then you can keep $2 and then give $3 to the quick guide.
We're actually going to be having someone else's. I don't know who they found to do that, but someone's going to be judging some X-Wing stuff too, and there's going to be some X-Wing stuff that weekend as well. So that's cool.
Nice.
I've been playing some Legion. I think I've got my worlds list pretty much finalized. Cad Bane and Maul. So I'm just kind of whatever on it, but the last few games I've played with it, it's been fun at least. And I've either won or had very close games. We started a Fallen Order playthrough again, Bethany and I. She's playing and I'm watching her play through Fallen Order, so that's kind of fun. Trying to get through that one more time before Survivor comes out. And then we tried out Star Wars Pictionary Air the other day.
Pictionary.
The one we picked up at Gen Con.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird, and we didn't stick with it.
So-
I tried again, but
Why
The weird-
why do they call it air? What's the air part of this?
it's when Gandalf exhales the ship. It's about that. No, it's got a little like wand that looks like an R2D2 vibrator thing. That you hold the button down and it lights up when you're holding the button. It has an app that uses your camera, and the camera detects the light. It's not Bluetooth or anything. The camera just detects the light and draws like an AR scribble in the air where the person is drawing. So they're sitting there. You can choose to let them see, have like the selfie cam on, or where they can't see what they're doing. And so they're just sitting there hoping that what they're doing in the air is coming across. And so it was okay. It's kind of weird because you can only use one phone. It's not like everybody syncs up on their phone. So everyone would have to like huddle around one phone if you can't like cast it to your TV, which we didn't. So that was kind of weird. And it was just kind of like, because when you can't see what you're doing, and we were sitting around a table, so I guess we didn't have maybe as much space to wave our arms around, but want to try it again, but it was not great. Also, like the pattern on Bethany's shirt was somehow being detected by the app as like the pen, so it was just like making like random scribbles. But when you pick teams, you pick a droid to represent your team, and Chopper was one of the options, so it's an A+ game.
Ooh.
Now, what do they think of next?
I actually forgot to mention that what I've specifically been painting for Star Wars are the heroes for the expansion boxes of Imperial Assault.
Nice.
And they're so much fun. These are like some of the later ones, so they've grown up a little bit. They're a little bit bigger than the first few. So they got a bit more detail. It's like the your favorite guy, Joe. Is it Vinto Jones? Vinny Jones, the Rhodian. Yeah, Vinto Jones.
Vinto Frida.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
The coolest character in
he's
that
cool.
game.
It's
And
neat. It's something you don't get in Legion or Shatterpoint. It's like, let's come up with an original character that just looks super cool, and they're not like a generic trooper, but they're not a known person either. So they like come up with pretty neat designs usually.
Yeah,
It's good.
every unique character in that game is just very cool. I think I can't think of any that are duds. Even that like Ethorian diplomat person is like kind of cool.
Still a cool idea.
Yeah,
She's
I'm
like a
painting that
regal
one
looking
too.
person with a holdout pistol.
And I'm doing the default, box art color schemes, but they're very well thought out, well put together color schemes, and they're a lot of fun. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. Will I get to play Imperial Assault anytime soon? That remains to be seen, but I'll at least have a full range of painted miniatures, and that's really what counts.
I mean, you can. If you get with the app, you can do solo, right?
That's true. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
You are 100% correcto. So, no excuses, none whatsoever.
All right, next time we record, we'll ask Evan how Imperial Assault solo campaign is going.
And I'll say,
You said no excuses.
Blew up the Death Star, killed Darth Vader, and called it a day. Just like Dak. Okay, so now that I got my extra 2 cents in, we can move on to the topic du jour, which has to do with the imminent release of the when I get the full name right, Star Wars: The Deck Building Game. That's its Christian name, correct?
Merchandising.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's not a card game. It's a deck building. It has a deck of
And
cards,
you
but
build
it's
it.
not. Yeah.
Okay, well, since you went there,
Yes. Let's
let me
tackle
fill in
this
the audience on the
philosophical question.
behind the scenes debate we were having. We said we're going to do an episode about Star Wars card games because it's a topic that we all find very interesting. Leo said, well, there's only like this many of them. And I said, but there's this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. For example, including things like the Funko Something Wild or Jabba's Palace, the Love Letter game.
Top
Or,
Trump.
Or Force Attacks, which I think is a collectible card game from Europe. Or the Episode 1 customizable card game, which was just the one box from Decipher, I think, made that one. And Leo said those aren't card games. Those don't count. And so we said, well, what is a card game? And he said things like Dominion. That's not a card game. That's a deck building game. But I said deck building games are. So I want to know, what are we talking about today? What is a card game?
Look,
I define a card game as a game.
Webster's Dictionary defines card game.
Because Leo said,
figure it out.
They're games that have cards. That's not a card game.
It's like
that's not a card game. Most games.
It's like how the Supreme Court, when they defined
Leo's the Supreme Court. Okay.
What was it like? Was it pornography or
not? I know it when I see it.
Yeah, yes. So they couldn't define it, but they know it when they see it.
So Star Wars: The Deck Building Game, in the court's opinion, is not a card game. I argue that a card game is a game its components are primarily cards, like the mechanics are driven by cards, and cards are the main mode of play. There may be tokens here and there, but the cards are the main engine that runs the game.
Because like Destiny,
my argument.
Destiny has dice, and you can't play without the dice.
Right, Destiny is a big one on our history list as we walk through the ages of card games here today. Are we going to talk about Star Wars Destiny, which I think is a big, worth noting.
Yeah, it's a card game.
Yeah, it's a card game.
It's a dice game.
Well, I will, as I did in our BTS, I will lay out my thought process since I'm the one that came up with the idea.
Yes,
that
Evan
way
will have final judgment.
Yes,
on what gets to be discussed.
So I look at deck builders. In fact, I'll address deck builders as a whole right now from my point of view, so you can understand how
an open letter to deck builders from Evan.
Yes, dear deck builder, it's me,
builders.
So they occupy a very strange marketplace, place in the market, not like a store, not like a marketplace, but they are single box contained experiences, and yet the majority of the popular ones like Dominion, like DC Deck Builder, which I really like, and Legendary, which is better than I thought it was going to be.
Ascension, that's the one we played a bunch in college.
I always forget about that one because I confuse Dominion with Ascension, and
Ascension is the one where you actually
that's the one with
fight
the
monsters
gems
and stuff instead of just being like, I got
Ascension is very close to Legendary, I thought. Or the two
I've
are
never
very
played
similar.
Legendary.
Yeah, I guess I'd say so.
I just remember we also played a bunch of Dominion. It was the most boring goddamn game.
Oh my god!
Then you're playing it wrong.
Hey guys,
thrills and the chills.
This comes from a person who enjoys a love letter, so I can't take your opinion seriously.
Oh my goodness.
Dominion is just for there's better games where you can make your own little engine where you go, oh, look at this deck I built that ruins everybody else's fun by stealing all the good cards.
That's true. Dominion does have that. But the point
that's the fun, is to ruin everyone else's day.
That's Star Realms. That game's got some theme to it. It's got some action. It's not just me going, oh, here's this, I got 1 gold and a sheep and
and a wood.
I'm so European.
Oh, wait,
look
that's
at my
that's Catan.
Medieval theme with no action or excitement. So, I love the games. Would you like to trade some wool?
The point is, deck builders are weird because they have some of that hobby quality to them, where you can just buy the one box, but if you like the core experience, you're probably going to buy the next dozen expansions. But I put that more in the hobby realm than just the single box experience. So I see it as the successor to, in terms of FFG, the LCG and Destiny, and now we have the deck building game. And maybe that's just because we had those previous two, and then they said there's another one on the way, and this is what we got. So we've sort of, at least for myself, I won't speak for the three of you, but sort of auto framed it as the next Star Wars card game in that same lineup.
It's a card game. It's it's a card game.
It is
So,
a
yes,
game with
I
cards.
agree.
You can't get around
No,
that.
no,
And it has,
it's a deck
and
builder.
you're
It's
trying.
all deck
and-
builders are card games.
No,
Like
But all card games are not deck builders.
yeah, like all penguins are birds.
Except that I have to
It's a
build my
special
deck for
type.
Magic the Gathering
It's a
before we
subset.
play.
no,
You have
it's more like how birds evolved from dinosaurs, but you don't call a bird a dinosaur because it's not a dinosaur.
Some people do.
Well, they're stupid
Some people do.
and
Anyway.
wrong.
Until you see it like a
Anyways,
cassowary or an ostrich, and then you're like, you know what? Yeah, it's a dinosaur.
No, you look at an ostrich and you look at your friend standing next to you and you're like, allegedly.
Allegedly.
And then they give you the nod and laugh. So here's the thing, Leo. I want you to tell us, finally, after all these years, what made the Decipher CCG, the customizable card game, not collectible, customizable. We got to get our vernacular right. What made that experience so foundational? Because
What do
you
you mean? Finally,
have-
we did an entire episode about.
I think
that.
we did.
well, maybe I wasn't around for it, but
No,
like,
you were.
Well, then I don't remember it clearly. I was probably drinking a lot. But with reference to, this isn't just like, why is it so good? This is in reference to the other experiences, including, and I don't think I mentioned it, but the successor to that, whether you can call it such or not, was the Wizards of the Coast trading card game that I think tried to play off of the excitement and popularity of the CCG, but didn't really deliver and didn't last a long time. So what is it compared to the other ones that we've mentioned that makes the CCG so foundational? And there may be people that didn't hear that previous episode that
Yeah,
want to hear your thoughts.
Fine, fair enough. Okay, for me, the thing that made the CCG so great, probably the biggest thing that none of the other games have really, other card games have really delivered. The LCG towards the end was starting to approach this, but it's and that's what it really is. Comes down to his theme. Just about anything you can imagine doing in Star Wars, or if you saw it on the screen, you can do it in the game. You can play Hands of Sabak in the game. You can do votes in the Senate if you really want to play a Senate deck. You can, you can do pod racing. You can
Do the trench run.
Yeah, you can do the trench run and blow up your opponent's Death Star if they have one out. If they don't have a Death Star, then you're going to feel real dumb, though, for playing a trench run deck.
I wish that was in the movie. Like, all right, we're gonna go blow up a Death Star, and they get there, and it's just like a Star Destroyer. Like, we're not prepared for this.
No, it's a wampa. It's a wampa. Like what? Just a wampa? Yeah, just a wampa.
They have things like if you have the for Hoth, the Imperials have to anything they want to deploy on the ground on Hoth, they have to deploy outside the shield and march in towards Echo Base to get to you. Unless they destroy the shield generator, then they can deploy wherever they want. And I mean, the list just goes on and on of things, examples like that. I just think the game did a really good job of capturing, the feel of Star Wars. And
So as much as a card game can, it was very simulationist.
yeah, it was. I mean,
It also seems like,
of course, that
where
also
they're like,
led
hey,
to it. Like the rule book, if you print it out, weighs about 30 pounds now because there's so much different situations in it, and like and most of the time there are all these dumb little rules that like they put it in there for the sake of being like, well, this was in the movies and this is kind of cool, but like in an actual game, it's not really that good, so nobody uses it. So like nobody really needs to know those rules, but they are there.
Yeah, that reminds me of, because when I think one time we played, there was like Dejarik cards, and there was like, they're just like units you can play, but you could also just like make a little side game of having a holo chess game.
Yeah, they're
their own little rules.
They're all interrupts or effects. All the holograms, the Dejarik holograms, are interrupts or effects. They're not like actual characters, except for at the Dejarik table, you can play them at that site as if they were like characters, kind of. And
that's funny. I like that.
I don't know. This may be out of scope or not what you had planned, Evan, but as someone who I feel like has probably played the least of the card games, or maybe one of the people who has played the least of them, what I am most interested in is like the mechanics of a lot of these games, because I see a lot of them. Like I have a unopened starter box thing of Jedi Knights trading card game, and I don't know how the game plays. Or I just got a booster of the Attack of the Clones card game. Just someone gave it to me, and so if we went through chronologically, which I think this Decipher CCG is probably the first one in this list. Like, how do they what's a brief rundown on how they compare to each other gameplay wise? Like, because the CCG is light versus dark. You have your locations that you put out, and you basically you send your units there and try and
you pull all these random characters and pieces of equipment and little events and things from the movie, and a bunch of crazy stuff happens.
The point of the drain CCG their force. You're trying to get their deck to run out, right? And you have cards that make them top deck stuff. Because when you fight, that's sort of how that goes. The loser has to burn cards from their hand or their deck.
Yeah, it's an incredibly unique, even at the time, I would say, really unique economy system, and where you pay for things by cycling your deck, which is kind of like a deck builder mechanic if you think about it.
But then it wouldn't be a card game anymore.
No, you're right. But it actually kind of made me look at card games that use tokens and be like, you couldn't just come up with a more elegant economy system like Star Wars CCG over here did.
So sixth grade, right? Sixth grade is when I found the 2-player introductory set at Walmart and bought that and started playing the CCG. That was my first introduction to just CCGs in general. Not long after that, I ended up buying some Magic cards off of some other kid in the lunchroom one time. He just had a stack of Magic cards that he wanted to get rid of. So I bought them off of him. No rule book or anything. So we ended up... There was enough information on the cards to where you could sort of infer enough rules to make a game work. And then combined with our knowledge that we had from the CCG, we just sort of made a game and played. And we got pretty close to the actual game, except for mana. Because we were actually taking cards off our deck and putting them into stacks. Like you would for your force pile to buy cards in the Star Wars CCG. So we're doing Magic like that. Like, okay, I've got this stack of cards over here. That's my white mana pool. Like this stack of cards. That's your mana pool. I've got five cards are white. These 5 are blue. these two are green mana.
That's actually pretty good. I kind
It
of
was
like that.
it was a really ridiculous way to try and keep track of it all. But it's all we knew because the only other card game I played before that was the Star Wars one.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yeah. So and then I found out that Magic plays totally differently than that, and I was all like, oh, well, I guess Star Wars. It's like you said, it's unique and it's interesting. But yeah, after that game though, then we got Young Jedi, and then that was followed up by Jedi Knights both from Decipher.
So how similar are those games? Because I thought my history was that Decipher had scandals and fell apart, and that's when the CCG died. But they made 2 other games before falling apart. Did these games coexist?
They had
with the
a
CCG?
lot of games actually.
Well, there's that episode 1 game that was just that I have here. That's like a more like casual kids card game.
Yeah, and that's also what Young Jedi was too. So this was towards the end of their license, yeah, because they ended up losing the license in 2001, wasn't it?
I think so. I think it was 01, yeah.
Yeah. So not too long after all the episode 1 stuff, but Young Jedi was all episode 1 focused stuff, and it was, as the name of the game itself implies, more focused on younger players, or it was trying to be. This was trying more to capture like that Pokemon audience, I think, of card players.
Mm-hmm.
So the gameplay is fairly. I'll be honest, I haven't played the game in years, so I don't really remember how it plays. I just remember it's very simplistic. It plays nothing like the original CCG, obviously, because that is just like one of the most. Honestly, it's considered one of the more complicated CCGs ever made. But yeah, Young Jedi was just really simplistic. There's not as much like fight. There's not really as much like fighting over locations and stuff. I think there are some locations you play.
Yeah, but there are locations, but it's just kind of like it gives you a little something else, a little boost, but it doesn't play a core end game.
Yeah, and I seem to remember, like, instead of like doing Destiny draws, like in the original, in the CCG, you did Destiny draws where you draw, and every card has a Destiny number on it, and then this could affect your power in battle or whether a weapon hits or something like that. They had a similar mechanic in Young Jedi, but it was like you rolling a chance cube, but instead of actually rolling a chance cube, every card had a chance cube printed down in the one corner with either a red or a blue face showing on it.
So you would just like to resolve a thing, you'd top deck a card and hope you got the right color.
Yeah, basically, if I remember right. Like I said, it's been so long since I played the game, and I didn't play it a lot because I was like, wow, this really sucks compared to the CCG. And then after that, Jedi Knights came out. That I think a lot of people think it was just sort of like a last-ditch effort to try and milk whatever money they could before the license expired.
Right. So
because it's some of the ugliest card art ever. It's all crappy 3D rendered stuff, and so I never actually have played the game because I could never get past just how ugly the art is. I never bothered to. Yeah, I don't think I've ever found a starter deck in the wild either, just booster packs.
I have a starter deck here because I picked one up at Gen Con where there was like a place with a bunch of things. It's still sealed. It's a pre-constructed starter deck. It's got a CG Tarkin on the side, which makes... I wonder if they're like, oh, hey, this gives me an idea for a movie in Rogue One. But Yeah, Bethany and I did like an unboxing of a couple booster packs a while ago because somebody had just given me some of these and I never heard of the game. And you are not lying. It is, it's 2001 CG 3D art, and it just does not look good.
Like a reboot looking.
Yeah, it's
don't insult Reboot.
Some of them are very funny though. There's some really good.
And I think for me also part of the problem was that at this point I was done collecting Star Wars because like I didn't even really collect the last couple sets of the CCG. Unfortunately, at the time they were out, I really wish I would have now, in hindsight. But by this point, most of my friends, all of my other friends, had moved on to Magic, and so by the time like Jedi Knights came out, I was 100% full time playing Magic. So I like I said, I think I bought like 1 or 2 booster packs, and then opened them up and was all like, "Holy, this is the worst," and have never bothered to learn how to play the game. I do have some. One day I plan on learning how to play, but today is not that day.
I love the card back on the Jedi Knights card too, because it's Vader, but split down the center where the one side is like the 3D like green vector lines. So
it's like split into polygons.
Right. They're like, hey, this is the whole point of this game, is this really cool computer generated artwork we've made here. Like we want you to remember that this is why this game exists, is because of this art. There's even on the back of this pre-constructed starter deck box it shows where you can collect 3D stereoscopic images, where there's 2 cards that have the same image but slightly offset. So if you look at them through these like cardboard viewers, you get a 3D image.
I actually have, or I don't. It's at my parents' place, but an actual like stereograph viewer. Like my grandma used to have an old like wooden stereograph thing in like a box full of stereograph pictures.
You gotta get more Jedi Knights so you can pop those cards into that thing and see them.
Jeez.
The true 3D they were meant to be seen in.
Maybe they suddenly, once you can actually see them like in 3D and they pop out, all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, it's not. This is. I understand now. It's not ugly.
It's that Frank Reynolds where he finally understands like modern art. He's like, I get it. So I'm assuming Young Jedi and Jedi Knights, in pure volume of cards printed, probably like 2% of what existed for the CCG. How many years did the CCG run, and then these other games probably ran for less than a year?
CCG started in 95.
Yes, 95.
And then ran from 95 till 2001, 2002.
Yeah, definitely not 02, because by 02, Wizards of the Coast was full on releasing their trading card game, because the first set was Attack of the Clones.
So I don't think I've ever even heard of this Wizards of the Coast Star Wars card game, honestly.
Was
like even that popular at the time or anything?
I mean, that's the thing, is it was sort of like a flash in the pan as far as like stores, that most stores carrying it. It came out 2002. Like you said, to coincide with Attack of the Clones. Because I mean, LucasArts Lucasfilm pulled the license from Decipher, passed it over to Wizards of the Coast. The game came out. I bought a starter deck and a couple boosters.
I got a Padme foil here for that game.
Oh, wow.
Didn't care for it. It just, I think for me, the thing was, it was just sort of like cards fighting each other. It didn't feel thematic the way the CCG did, so I lost interest basically immediately.
I have a Attack of the Clones trading card game light side starter deck here that Dan gave me.
Hmm.
Why is there a $25 sticker on this?
Yeah, I don't know.
In
I
any
don't know
case-
why. Because like seriously, even today, I can go. There's a store here in town. I can go and buy those starter decks for $5, but they're all the same cards in them, so I don't need any more.
Align the light side and bring justice and order to a troubled galaxy. Yeah, this is the Wizards one. Even it says, "Oh wait, Attack of the Clones" must be the name of the
Yeah,
like the set.
Yeah.
Attack of the Clones
in
is the
big,
name of the
bold
set.
letters.
It was just called
Yeah.
the Star Wars trading card game. Is like the actual name of the
Visually-
game.
These do remind me of like the card borders and stuff are different, but the way that they're laid out reminds me of the CCG, where it's a screenshot, it's a photograph, and there's horizontal locations, and the units and action cards are vertical, and they have just a couple stats.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if I showed you the Star Trek CCG first edition and the
That's what I
Star
was
Wars
gonna
CCG.
say.
They line up very close. And then if I were to show you the Star Trek second edition and then put that next to the WotC Star Wars, you'd be like, oh, those are probably made by the same company.
Yeah, looking at these cards, something about the border style looks very Star Trek to me. It doesn't look Star Wars in the way the
Yeah.
CCG
Right.
with like the pockmarked metal frame and stuff. It's very weird looking to me.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Plo Koon has artwork and not a photograph. At least that's what it looks like. Everything else is like a screenshot.
Yeah. For me, the craziest thing about this game is just how much of it there actually is. Like I said, after the Attack of the Clones set came out, and like
I think there
nobody I know bought it. Like every store, no stores around me kept playing it, and yet the game has 10 expansions, I think.
Yeah, the only one that I visually remember, besides Attack of the Clones, is I think A New Hope. I think, yeah. That's the only other one that I could tell you. Yeah, they made this.
Yeah,
So,
because
yeah.
they had what the hell did they have? There's Attack of the Clones was the first one. Yeah, then they had Sith Rising, which was still like a prequel one. They had A New Hope, Battle of Yavin, Jedi Guardians, Empire Strikes Back, Rogues and Scoundrels, Phantom Menace, Return of the Jedi, and Revenge of the Sith. So that was from April 2002 until May 2005.
Okay, only 2005. I was wondering if it was up until they lost the license, which was 2010. I think.
No. WotC continued to put out their miniatures line, and, excuse me, and RPGs up until January 2010. So the card game was the first one to go away. But then I think they were also making, during that same time period, they were making a Harry Potter card game before the movies came out.
Oh,
They
wow.
were the US distributor of Pokemon at the time. So they had a lot going on at WotC besides Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, and like the Star Wars trading card game, I mean, it's popular enough that there was a independent development committee that is still putting out new sets. There's even a Rise of Skywalker set that came out a while ago.
Wow, that's
Huh.
wild. I had no idea
that
that
they
anyone
put
had
out.
continued that.
Devoted
Play it at
fan
least
base.
once. I kind of want to play all of these at least once, especially Jedi Knights. I'm just so curious about that one because it's
Yeah, I mean they've even got they've got new Jedi Order stuff if you want to fight some Yuzan Vung.
I don't.
All right. Well, in the interest of getting us through the timeline, as cool as it would be to just dissect this era of Star Wars, which I think we should do sometime, is just like the games of the prequel era. I think that'd be cool because it'd all be WotC and there'd be a lot to look at.
A lot of Mattel or whatever. I've got a lot of those on my shelf right now.
Oh
Jedi,
yeah, all your
epic duels,
cool ass
and
board games. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good games from that era.
All right, let's put that down. Let's take a note. Somebody, Siri, take a note. Games of the prequel era. Let's get to the Fantasy Flight era because that's when, for me, like, well, I think for all of us, like the golden age started again of the tabletop Star Wars. They were like, hey, we're going to have card games, we're going to have RPGs and miniatures, and the first one's X-Wing, and then, I mean, that came out in officially September of 12, but then they had the beta for Edge of the Empire, and they had their revamped LCG that came out. Well, it landed in Leo's hands November of 2012, and then I think officially hit stores in December of 2012. That's when I got mine.
So, Star Wars: The Card Game by Fantasy Flight Games, as you said, an LCG.
Proper name.
Star Wars: The Card Game. It's Christian name. Everyone calls it the LCG, which, if you're unfamiliar with, Evan, fill everyone in on because this is a very big departure from the games we had previously been talking about.
That is true. So this marks the biggest shift from the, I hate to say traditional because it wasn't that old at the time, but what we think of as the collectible with a small c card games, where you would buy boosters of 15 cards like you would baseball cards. And, you'd eventually put together a deck using the cards that you got. But the living card game, which I still say, even if it's not the most profitable format, it is the most player-friendly format, depending on releases and all that and that.
I'm so happy that Doomtown is that format, which I think living card game is technically trademarked by Fantasy Flight, but other companies use the same format.
Yeah, it's like that's the new fine. Like the Vampire the Masquerade card game is a living card game, but they call it like an expandable card game or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what they call Doomtown.
So what that is, for anyone that wasn't alive from 2012 to what was 2019?
Now, if you were just born.
If you were just born yesterday, like maybe you were, I don't know.
Listening to this episode decades in the future.
You could be prenatal people, put the headphones on their baby bumps and listen to the Jodo cast.
If
your
only.
Mozart.
If only.
Good way to mess up your baby.
so the deal with
about AMG.
Listening to Leo cuss at his children. So the deal with the living card game. What's the deal with this? You buy the first box. It's got enough to play a full game, theoretically. Then they release large and small expansions. But you know exactly what's going to be in those expansions. There's no blind packs. It's just these are the packs. $40 to get started, and then $15 for these packs that give you a full play set.
And you get everything in the expansion in the pack. You don't have to, like you said, you don't have to continually buy more packs and try and get cards random.
It's depressing to me because it's so much. It's consumer friendly. It's saying, okay, here you buy the one thing, you got it. Whereas other things like Magic or later Fantasy Flight's Destiny, which we'll talk about, where if the booster packs, you're like, well, let me spend 10 times as much money to not get all the cards. But it's, addictive and gambling, and it's better for the business. Mm-hmm. And it
creates that secondary market.
Well,
I
do understand some things. Like it's living card games are hard for stores to stock, though, too, because as a living card game ages, you got so many sets and different packs and stuff out there that it's hard for a store to stock all that different stuff Versus with like a collectible card game, it's just, well, you just have a few boxes of whatever the newest set is on hand, you know?
Mhm.
Whereas like with a living card game, just sort of the way they're designed, you ideally to serve all those customers, you would want to have the full sort of breadth of the entire game on stock, and that's a pain for stores. And I know, at least talking with some of the store owners in my area, they were never a real big fan of that format, because they felt like they ended up eventually, after a while, they'd be like, well, I need the shelf space, but you know,
That makes sense. Yeah.
and it was hard to judge how many to buy and keep on stock and things like that. Like
but
you said,
is it less space than having all these magic singles in a giant display case, et cetera, et cetera? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's, I mean, in some cases, well, I don't know. That's another topic and that's a story for another day that we'll never address.
Well, we'll talk about it with Destiny, probably. That's why I stopped
There
playing
you go.
Destiny.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's talk about the LCG first, now that we understand what an LCG is.
Yeah, because the
Go ahead,
LCG
Kurt,
has
go ahead.
very interesting vibes, I think, as an outsider who's basically played like a few demo matches of it to try it out. It's really interesting because it felt like it was trying to capture a lot of the thematic mechanics, like Leo was talking about the CCG having. Oh, you can have this fleet that does this, and you can do these bounty hunts, and you can do et cetera, et cetera. But when I actually tried to play it, it didn't feel like any of the mechanics actually lived up to what they were trying to do. It felt like everything was backwards of what you were supposed to do. And I was like, what is going on? I don't understand. Am I supposed to attack this thing or not? And it was like very confusing. It didn't really match the theme it was trying to go for. It was like very ambitious. And I mean, again, I haven't played it that much, but that's kind of my view of it, you know?
Yeah.
You
I got
are
into the
correct.
game late, and I enjoyed it, but I never thought it was even close to being thematic, which sometimes helped, because sometimes it was so abstract that I like to try and tell the story of what's happening when I'm playing games. I'm like, well, this Ewok just took down the Executor somehow. Like, maybe he snuck aboard and pooped in the engines or something. 'Cause I don't remember what. I know there was like an Ewok card that could, beat a Star Destroyer in a combat or something, somehow with some effect. And it's like, how did this happen? It's kind of weird. But
it's all the behind the scenes things going on, you know.
Yeah. The mechanics were good, but they were not thematic, which made it hard to be a Star Wars game.
Yeah, I've said it, like, back when the game first came out and we were playing and stuff, is that it wasn't a bad game, but it really felt to me like it was a game they had on deck waiting to have a theme.
Slap the theme on.
And then they got the Star Wars license and they were like, all right, we're slapping a Star Wars skin on this rule set we already had ready to go.
Yeah, because how it worked is you had like a deck of your cards with your dudes and your actions and reactions and stuff, and then a deck of like your missions,
objectives to make it even more
missions
trained.
Came in later.
Missions
were
like an objective you gave to your opponent.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's exactly what Kurt's talking about. It's like, this is your objective. Wait, that's my objective? I want to do that? No. You want to hit his objective. Like, but that's his objective. Yeah, but it's your objective with a small O to hit his objective with a large O. Like,
I did like the it was very asymmetrical. Like, if you looked at it, it looked symmetrical. I've got my 3 objectives over here that you're trying to attack. You've got your 3 that I'm trying to attack. But to win, the light side player had to destroy 3 dark side objectives, but the dark side player they had like a little Death Star dial that they had to just tick up, which got ticked up by destroying objectives. So it was like the dark side objectives were more
ticked
powerful.
Up at the end of every turn.
Oh yeah, it was like a timer.
But then destroying objectives would make it would give it an additional tick every time you destroyed a light side player's objective.
Right. So it was the like sides were balanced a little bit differently which I thought was kind of neat to account for that. Like the dark side could sort of try and play defense or be aggressive to speed up that timer. Like there were a
But
lot
they
of
would
cool
the dark side would win if nothing happened. The dark side would win.
Right. Right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It was
Yeah,
just
it was interesting. It made it so like the light side player could not just be passive. You had to go after.
which on a high level is quite thematic for Star Wars.
Uh-huh. And another thing now the thing I genuinely really liked about the LCG was its deck the mechanic for building your decks. Um,
Very
You like the
unique.
pods?
yeah, I think they were an interesting way to balance the game, and just as it's something you didn't really see elsewhere.
I forgot
Um,
about that.
That's true.
so with each objective, you would put 10 objectives into your objective deck, and each objective attached to it would be 6 other cards, a pod of 6 cards, and then those 6 cards would go into your normal play deck. So once you chose your 10 objectives, that builds your deck of 60 cards.
Right. So it's almost you're making these you build a deck of 10 which builds your deck of 60 for you, which I thought was interesting. A, because it was less thinking for me to do almost, but also it
Mhm.
made it a little bit trickier and sometimes more thinking where you're like, well, I want to take this objective because it works well with this cards. But that means I have to bring this one card because it's stuck to this pod that isn't great, which I thought was kind of neat that you kind of got stuck with cards that maybe you didn't like
Uh-huh.
and something to overcome.
Well,
And there,
they
there were
did that.
lots of ways to burn them.
And they did that on purpose, though, so they could be like, okay, we're going to put this really powerful card, this badass Darth Vader or whatever in this pod, but to balance it out, you've got these, the rest of the pod is these really, stormtroopers or
Stormtroopers.
something like that
Kind of
are
clog your
fodder and
deck
are
up.
just going to die right away.
The other thing I'll say for that game is that makes it better than all of the other card games we've talked about is it had access to Fantasy Flight's art department.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
yes.
it because like even if you're like, oh, thematically whatever, I'm like, oh well, I get to throw down this Boba Fett and this Han Solo and this spaceship and it's just the best art. Just flipping through your cards, I'm like, oh, this is such good art.
Yeah,
And
because with the exception of Jedi Knights and the 3 CGI, all the other games we've been talking about so far all used movie stills.
Yeah.
right, I hate when games do that.
I mean, I think a lot of them looked good back in the original CCG, but they could be hit or miss too. Sometimes it's like
Mhm.
zooming in on this little background character. They tried to do a little CGI to like put a gun in a different setting, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Right?
Yeah. That is true.
The other thing that the LCG had going for it was before it's faded away, it did put out a bunch of sets based around Star Wars Rebels, which I was really excited about.
Hmm.
And it was some of the best design too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Kanan
think
Chopper
towards
and Callus and stuff.
yeah, that's when they towards those last few sets when they started to really push the thematic type stuff a little bit more. Adding in, like even just dumb stuff like you can put a pilot on a vehicle and have him now be piloting.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
base game didn't have that at all. And it's I don't know, just coming from the CCG, it would just seem like a no brainer to me.
I also liked where the previous games were either Empire versus Rebels or just Light Side versus Dark Side. This one, while being Light Side versus Dark Side, each of those had 3 factions within them. So it was like Sith, Empire, and like Scum, and Rebels, Jedi, and Scoundrels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that made some more variation too. And you could mix and match them. You had to have one primary faction, but you could still put cards from the other factions in there. So you could have like a Rebel Jedi deck or a Scoundrel Rebel deck or a Sith Scum deck, which I Now that as we're talking about it, I'm like, dang, I should go play that again.
Yeah, you
Dan, if
should.
you're listening, let's go play.
I'm sure Dan.
I'll find out if Dan listens or not, because he'll absolutely want to play if he hears this.
Well, I appreciate you all humoring me and spending so much time on the LCG, because I preferred that one, if for no other reason than how it was released, than our follow-up, which I think all of you probably liked more than me, and that's Star Wars Destiny. No card game in the title, anywhere to be found.
Got a good title.
It had a great title. That is true. It was right up there with Imperial Assault, Armada.
I'm sure somebody
Destiny.
at Fantasy Flight was like, why don't we call it Star Wars The Card and Dice Game? That guy got his way again when they named Star Wars The Deckbuilder.
Yeah, so as Joe, if you're not familiar with Destiny, as Joe already pointed out, the game had not just cards, but dice. And it was a unique, but then they also went back to the whole random packs for this game, which kind of sucked.
There's a big ass die in the pack that you're buying.
I mean, the dice were cool and chunky and this like screen printed with like images. Which
the dice are great. They're really high quality. The biggest thing that sucks is that by the time you collected a whole set, you had so many extras of some of the because it was
common cards.
Yeah, well, only rares came with dice. Rare, because so there were rares, and then there was like one level above rare, which was, I forget what it was called,
Mythic
or something. Yeah, so only those two rarities of cards had dice. But by the time you got all the like epic rarity cards in a set, you had a lot of extras of like gaffy sticks or whatever.
Yeah, like having extras of a card is annoying. Having extras of dice is way more annoying.
I have just that's the thing, is I don't know how to store these. Like, I still have my Destiny collection, but I just have like a big bucket full of dice. I'm like, I want to sort it all out, but it's like the idea of sorting the cards and then trying to sort the dice and pair them with the cards to make sure I have everything just is like, it's just too much.
My dice are in like a tackle box thing where they can like easily fit in like one layer and you can see them all. It works well, but my extra dice are in like
must have way less dice than I do.
I do. I bailed on that game a lot sooner than everybody else did, because it was the first like real like collectible game I'd gotten into, and I'm like, this. I open a thing, and now I'm get a case of boosters or whatever. I'm like, well. Mm-hmm. I have a pile of garbage from every individual booster wrapper, and I have a pile of duplicates that I can't do anything with because everybody else has a pile of these same duplicates, and I don't have the cards I actually wanted. And now I'm like, well, maybe I'll just buy a single. Like, oh, that's $25 or whatever. I'm like, well, that's also bullshit. This is dumb. This game is really fun, and the collectible nature of it, I just cannot. I couldn't deal with that. I love opening boosters and going, oh, I finally got Chopper and Cat Bane or whatever, and I managed to get those guys before I left the game, but it's just like, nah, I didn't like it.
If it hadn't been collectible, I might have actually got into it because I liked the demo games I played. It was really fast, back and forth, mini turns, and you like rolling the dice is kind of a fun, tactile thing to like get these dice out, but then your turn's done, you're like waiting to spend them, and it was like back and forth and kind of fun. I liked it.
They just need to re-release it as like a digital app. I'd be all over that.
Oh, that would actually be super.
Goodbye, Marvel Snap. Let me play Star Wars Destiny.
Well, and the other thing about it that I guess I would say I did not like, but I think everybody else liked it much more, was that it was, I call it the Smash Brothers style of gaming experience. Like, there was no simulationist. There was no attempt to be like, I mean, I guess there was still kind of sort of a light side versus dark side, but
Yeah, you had to
Yeah,
pick
there
light
was.
side or dark side.
There,
but
yeah.
at
Yeah,
but
you had heroes and
you
villains.
didn't necessarily by the end of the game, or even by
You could be cross era and
yeah. So
Right.
you could have uh I can't think of anybody's names. Han Solo versus Mace Windu.
No, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and
So
that was
yeah,
fine. It really felt like, Masters of Terras Kasai or Smash Brothers or whatever, because you had your random ass characters from all eras of Star Wars basically just trying to do damage to each other. But then on top of that, there was the one location card that was like, okay, this is the stage in our video
yeah.
game where we're
yeah,
hanging out that has a special thing. And that was kind of a neat mechanic too, because there was a goal to like benefit the first person to, I don't know, drop pass on a round so they could claim the
Yeah,
stage or
yeah.
whatever. And the decks, I think, were like 30 card decks or smaller than
Yeah,
that.
they were only 30, which I feel like made all those spare commons and uncommons you got feel even worse, because
oh yeah,
you could, yeah, because you had I think it was, if I remember right, there's a 2-card limit in your deck also for each thing. So, um, yeah, so just like you just had so many of just leftovers.
Now that we're talking about it, I think the frequency of the cards just needed to be reworked, and I think, like I say, now that we're talking about it, I think that would have solved some of those problems if they knocked them all down. Like, instead of having the ultra rares, just have rare and make the rares uncommon, and just sort of
Well, see,
bundle the
they
uncommons
kind of couldn't.
commons.
I mean, they kind of couldn't do that because, like you said, those were dice, and they only could do one die per pack.
Yeah, you're right. That is true. That is true.
And I think at the end of the day, the dice, as cool as they were, that was the thing that ultimately ended up killing the game. I think is one, you got people like me who I really enjoyed the game, but by the end, I sort of got sick of trying to figure out what to do with all these dice and stuff. Like, storing cards is easy, storing all these dice and storing them in a manner and storing them in a manner where it's all like, okay, I'm going to build a new deck and I want to, I'm going to stick Thrawn in here. Well, now I've got to go to my bucket of red dice and try and find the Thrawn die in there. And, and then a lot of, so there was that.
A bunch of those, like, binders. Remember those binders?
Oh, God, we remember. I'm sure Miniature Market still has some.
And then I think because of the dice, they kept running into production and stock issues with the game too, because producing those dice is, and keeping those going is a lot harder than just printing more cards.
And think about the store that wants to sell that secondary market. Like with Magic, you just have these stacks of cards like sitting out, right? But here you have to like have the dice with them or set aside so that you can find them quick and make sure you include them when someone buys them. It's probably a huge pain for the store, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's got to be. Now, and I don't know about secondary market, but like the booster packs and stuff are still a thing, at least around, like down in the Twin Cities.
We saw some.
Yeah, you can find them at several gaming stores. They still have them on the shelf because there's still people who, especially they'll do still like drafting or sealed, which was actually a thing when they put out the draft packs for that. That was a lot of fun. Actually, was doing the drafting for
that was the best era for me.
It seems like it would be a fun game to go and just like buy someone's collection for cheap and be like, well, I'm getting more or less a complete set or whatever, and now we can just play and not worry about the collecting aspect and like the sort of release aspect, and like just enjoy playing it as if it were a board game box set or something, right?
In fact, the 2-player intro set that they released with
it's like Rey versus
Last Jedi.
Kylo, or
it was Last Jedi, Rey and Kylo, and all their supporting cards.
I think,
like that single box experience in itself, I think, was a better experience than the core game, marketing wise, at least.
If they could have just married the two, like have the of Destiny and LCG, right? Have like the Destiny rules, but release it in the LCG style, at least from like the player perspective. That seems like it would have been like the magic, Yeah,
I honestly, I would have been willing to pay a premium price, to get something like that. Even if they were like, because I was, dropping $100 to buy a booster box, a whole box full of boosters when a new set would come out. I'd buy a couple boxes, and I would still end up not quite getting a whole set and have to trade with people and stuff. For a couple of those ultra rares, epics, whatever. Like I said, I can't remember what they were called. But yeah, and then if I could have paid like $100 and not had to have all the extra cardboard and extra dice I didn't need, that would be awesome. But
less is more.
Alas.
Yeah. So
if you're listening to this and you've never played Destiny, and you can find it for cheap, just don't let it consume you and think you need to get everything. Because if you can get enough for to make a couple decks, it's a fun game. If you have somebody who would play it with you.
Yeah, it's core mechanic in the midst of the game, nothing else withstanding, is very fun. It's very quick. Like, it does not take an hour and a half to play that game, that's for sure.
And I'm looking at the list of releases on Wikipedia, and I gotta say, you gotta make sure you buy Legacies, because Wikipedia says it includes highly demanded fan favorite Jar Jar Binks. So that's probably the best expansion, according to Wikipedia, at least.
Oh my goodness. All right.
So Destiny, looks like Destiny started in 2016 and kind of petered out at the start of the pandemic. Basically, they're just like, I guess we're not going to make any more. Sorry, basically.
Yeah.
Well, it had honestly been petering out before then.
There were a lot of, like you said, production issues and stuff, as I recall.
Yeah,
they
there was always
to release the last set, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was just always delays and stuff like that, and part of it was like at least with the first set. The first set, the demand was crazy for for the first couple sets. So that's part of the reason they had so much trouble keeping it in stock. But even once things sort of leveled out, they still kept running into issues, and it was just just a lot of issues with producing those dice in a consistent manner.
Well, I think we're almost to the present day. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're ready to talk.
I have a question for the audience before we get to the present day, because this is a game in the same vein as these other ones. There is a game called Force Attacks, the collectible game. I think it's only in Europe. Attacks, ATTAX. I don't know anything about it. I just know I got a bunch of it for free when I was at Celebration London, because the people who made it had all these little promos. I feel like it's probably something you have perforated and you tear out of the back of a magazine or something. I want to know what its deal is. If you live in Europe and you know about it, join our Discord and be like, yeah, it sucks. Which it probably does. It looks like a game aimed at little.
All right, here's this. The game is designed for 2 players. Each player must have 12 cards in their unit deck.
What?
I don't like that we're calling your deck your unit. Hey, check out my unit.
Similar
with
to saying
the following deck building rules: at least 4 different character types, only 1 starfoil, and only 1 force master allowed in your deck. Players lay their cards, all 12, face down, and then flip a coin to see who goes first. First player picks a card to play with and the type of action, defense, or attack. The second player responds with his own card choice. The player with the higher number wins the turn. So it just sounds like you just flip up 12 cards. And it sounds like it's Star Wars War, basically.
It's like collectible
Star
somehow.
War.
Okay, so I think each card has like an attack and a defense, and then you choose which one you flip, and then you choose which one to like defend with. So it's like war with like 1% more strategy, because you have to choose which. Maybe there's a card where this has got a good defense and a good attack. Do I want to burn it on defense or attack? I don't know. Probably really deep. Probably.
Yeah, probably not. It's made by Topps.
Yeah, it is. Okay,
And
well,
it
my
looks
curiosity has been satiated. Thank you.
I gotta say the numbers on these cards look crazy too, because I just happened to pull up this Balatique card: 79 defense, 80 attack. Is this
like
even like? Are you adding these like huge numbers, or you just want the highest one? How does this work? This is very weird.
I think you want the highest one.
Yeah. Yeah, they just you flip
Razu Kinfi, 69 attack.
Razu Kinfi?
Wow. Yeah, he looks like a what's it called? Not whatever. I can't remember the names of these characters. That's fine.
Well, I've got a couple decks worth of those, I think, somewhere.
Wow.
Half of them are in German and half of them are in English, if I remember.
Conja Club. He's a Conja Club guy. That's what I was trying to remember.
Oh, yeah. Conja Club.
So if you want 69, okay. Kylo Ren, 95 defense, 98 attack.
I wonder who's got 100. It sounds like 100 is the max. I think we should shift into a Force Attacks show.
Oh, Rey. There's a version of Rey that's 100.
Of course.
Yoda, Force Meister Yoda is 101 and 101.
Force Meister, not Machtmeister.
Well, it says Force Meister.
Meister Force.
I get the impression there's a bunch of versions of every character, so it's like another random rarity type thing. There's like a better Rey and a worse Rey with slightly.
Well, that's
different
what
numbers,
the deck building thing said. You can only have one Force Master and
Meister.
one foil or something.
But imagine if there was that type of collectible element in the CCG or Destiny or something. Oh, I got a slightly better Rey that has a slightly better number than yours, and then you have to worry about that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds crazy.
Well,
Super
when
Saiyan
next
3
Jodo
Rey.
Con, we'll be having a Force Attacks tournament. I've ensured no one will now come to Jodo Con.
Great.
It'll be a compulsory Force Attacks tournament.
You have to
can
play
enter
to get
the
your
hall.
badge.
And you have to bring
Yeah.
your own deck.
You can still lose, but everyone will you'll get the red badge instead of the green badge.
That actually sounds like great and terrible for a convention where to get your badge you have to play some game and then you're color coded by whether you won or not.
Well, here's a Boba Fett with 69 defense.
Nice.
Ooh.
Wow.
Nice.
That's because he's doesn't like sex, as we all know. But his defense. He's defensive.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't
69.
He doesn't like sex outside of wedlock. Once you're married, you can bone all you want.
But not 69 though, because that doesn't make children. It's against
How
the
you make children,
Mandalore.
you get them out of the tube.
So I guess Boba Fett was part of the same group that Mon Mothma's daughter was, right? It's part of the same tradition.
So, Star Wars deck builder.
Anyways,
guys.
yes, the deck building
building.
game. Yeah, so we have reached modern times. The deck building game is set to come out very soon. And am I mistaken that we
Very
really
soon
only
as in
have-
when?
Very soon as in the 3rd of March.
March
So
3rd, yeah.
So whether
I
you're
forgot it
in
was
Europe
that
or
soon.
America, it's 3/3.
Yeah. Very soon, as in, some people have been getting copies already.
Maybe
Yeah,
before this episode comes
I
out.
was
People
gonna,
with-
I was going to
peop-
say, what's
peop-
with these
people-
other schmuckos getting the previews?
people with YouTube channels that talk about Star Wars. I don't.
People who suck.
Steve Horvath, I know you're listening.
Yeah,
We're calling you out.
What's going on, buddy?
It's our time. You owe us.
Well,
I feel like this that one that was posted in our Discord. I feel like he just like got an early copy through his store or something like that. I don't think he got one from Fantasy Flight. The channel has 64 subscribers and videos. So
probably, unless they're like the Jodo Cast guys are going to be so mad when they see we gave it to this guy and not him.
It's not like WotC is sending out Magic 30th packs to Yu-Gi-Oh people. Oh boy! All right.
I don't know. I think we're blacklisted at Asmodee PR.
Oh, I'm sure we are. Because we speak the truth.
The truth they don't want you to know.
That's right. Info Star Wars.
God. No.
Correct me if I'm wrong. How many articles do we have about deck building game? We have the announcement and then just the design
and then
one.
the design one, and then they had the stream where they played through the game,
and the stream. Okay,
that probably got us the most info, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, I think the article they published gave us a lot of info, but we were like, well, but I have questions about this or that, and then I think the stream just sort of filled in those gaps.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to go into too much detail because I think we did a whole episode about that, didn't we? Did we?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
It's possible.
But we did with the article. I don't think we do another. Yeah, we did do another. We did I think we did a video after the stream.
Oh yeah, we did.
We have so much content we can't even keep it straight. Join our Patreon. But I am glad that we talked about LCG because, excuse me, reading through the 5,000 foot description of deck building game. Quit trying to get my Imperial Assault Minis, cat. Doggone it. It sounds very reminiscent to me of the LCG because your goal on each side, Rebel and Empire, are the two sides at this point to blow up each other's base, and just about how you say again.
I said it doesn't remind me of the LCG at all.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the actual gameplay. I think
you only have one base out at a time, don't you?
Yeah,
but you have a stack of bases that you do cycle once you lose.
In the LCG, did you get a choice of which one you flipped out next?
No, because you shuffled your objective deck.
Because I like in the LC or in the deck builder when your base gets blown up, you get to pick which one comes out next. You get draw two. Maybe you don't, but in any case,
you do get to choose. You do get to choose.
Kind of a strategic choice.
Yeah. So when your base gets blown up, obviously you're losing. But at that point, now the base you put out now has an ability. It's not the little default starter base, and you get to pick which is going to benefit me most in this situation. So it's sort of like you're winning, but now I get to have this little power up to help me catch up, which I think is a nice little touch.
But in any event, did any of us think? Now we've been going for a while, and really, this conversation is about where we were and where we are soon to be. Did any of us think that when Steve Horvath, the man, said we have a new card game on the way, did we think it was going to be a deck builder?
No.
I would have bet that it would have been something similar to that Marvel was it United
Champions.
No, that's the minigame. Marvel Champions or Arkham Horror, where it's a cooperative game because those two games are doing very well for them. So I was like, why not just make a Star Wars one? That's what I would have guessed.
And I was with you on that. Yeah, a co-op versus the board.
Right.
Because that's what the LCG was originally supposed to be, and people said, no, I want to play a versus game.
I want a co-op game. Do we? I don't think, with the exception of Imperial Assault against the app, is there a fully cooperative Star Wars tabletop game? Probably one of my weirdo ones from
role-playing
like
game.
20 years ago, maybe. Role-playing games, I don't count that.
It's a game. It's on a tabletop. It uses boards and time.
No, I don't count it as
We're
cooperative.
all equal participants in creating a story.
No, I'm just being a dick. No, I don't think there is any. At least not from FFG. But yeah, if you've got some crazy German one.
I mean, there's probably a weirdo game on my shelf that's cooperative, but yeah, not like a modern or like substantial game like.
Oh, I'm sure there
Horror
wasn't
or
there the VHS game. The VHS board game.
VHS game was sort of not fully cooperative because at some point somebody turns into Darth Vader's pupil.
Okay,
and,
I thought you were going to say
and
a
then
scorpion.
is against everybody else.
Wow, okay. That took a turn.
Yeah, and then you have to like, talk to him and go, yes, Master, or yes, Dark Lord, or something like that. I don't know.
Oh.
Go watch our gameplay video of it.
So the answer is, really?
I don't think there has been a cooperative, really, other than, like you said, Imperial Assault app.
Oh, I got one. Death Star or Dark Side Rising is cooperative. It's not from Fantasy Flight, but it is a modern. It is a modern game, and it's good. Okay.
Oh, what about Clone Wars Pandemic?
Oh yeah, Clone Wars Pandemic.
Clone Wars Pandemic. All right.
Yeah, we did
You're off the hook. The other companies are covering your slack for the lack of co-op games.
All right. But yeah, I would have been fully on board with them with guessing that they would have said new Star Wars LCG. It's going to be co-op in the vein of Lord of the Rings and Marvel
And
Arkham.
I think Arkham's the biggest seller. I think
probably.
Or they could have done a Star Wars reskin of Keyforge. Oh. Every deck unique.
Starforge.
Etc. etc.
No, don't. You're gonna crash. You're gonna crash.
And then they would have to give it over to Ghost Galaxy to rebuild the algorithm. They just happened to be doing that when it all went down. Who knows how that happened? Okay. How do I know we've sort of debated the nature of deck building game? So at this point, how are we all each individually feeling about this imminent release? Are you excited? Are you like, well, let's see how it goes. I'll wait for reviews. I've
got my copy
Patreon.
Pre-ordered.
Wow, pre-order.
Is there a Hobby Next thing for it?
No, there isn't.
I want to pre-order it, but then it's probably I get it faster if I just went to a store that day. Maybe I should pre-order.
Well, I mean, I've got it pre-ordered at my local store.
Yeah, I should do that. I'm quite excited about it. I don't think it's going to be a game that I keep dying to play over and over and over again, but I am excited to try it. And
I feel like one thing I think is going to be nice, at least assuming it. I mean, from what we've read and the games we've seen, it plays very, very similar to Star Realms. And one nice thing about Star Realms is it's generally a pretty quick game. You can sit down and, I mean, I'd say 15 minutes to a half hour, you can have a game of Star Realms knocked out, and then you say, hey, let's play another one. Or if you're doing a game night, it can easily fit into a game or a game night where you're doing multiple games. Whereas there's so many games where if you're playing them for 2-3 hours, well, by the time you're done with that,
and they said there
people
is
don't want to play another game.
You can do a 2v2 if if you have 2 copies of the
2
game.
boxes, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and they also said you can vary the length. Just say how many bases do we have to kill to finish the game, and I think that'll change it up a lot. Are we playing first to 3 or first to 10?
Yeah, there could be interesting variety there. I have to assume they will announce expansions at some point, but since they haven't already announced them, it kind of implies that they're not going to be coming out as frequently as a lot of these card games or other tabletop games. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be.
I would expect a year.
Or,
one expansion a year tops.
Yeah, but like I said, like we saw on the cards, there was a symbol down in the bottom corner of the cards that looks very much like it's an expansion or set demarcation type symbol.
Yeah.
So I feel like seeing that on there is like it's almost guaranteed that as long as the game sells well, they have plans for additional sets after this one.
And I think for me, excited seems like a strong word. Like, I was excited for like Legion to come out or Armada to come out. I think I'm, looking forward to it. To me, it reminds me of like a board game release or like a Fallout Shelter or something where I'm like, oh yeah, that looks kind of cool. I'll get a copy and try it. But I'm also not expecting to be playing it all the time like I would like a miniatures game. Like, I'll be like, well, hopefully someone will try it with me at some point. You know what I mean? But and hopefully it's good, but I'm not like breathlessly waiting for it like some bigger game,
Mm-hmm.
I guess like I said, I'm very excited just because I love deck builders. So
you're the target audience.
Mm-hmm.
Great. They made this one just for you, apparently. We'll give Steve a hug for you when we see him at Adepticon.
Or we can walk up and be like, Steve. What are we going to do with you? You're letting us down, buddy.
Like, you promised us a card game,
dark alley,
but we got a deck builder.
And he's like, what are you talking about? A deck builder is a card game. You don't understand. Not the same.
All right. Well, damn it, Cat. He is being a terror tonight. All right. What? For my cat. He's a terror. All of that is done. Okay. I lost my train of thought. Do we have anything else to say on this prior to this game's launch here in a week and a few days? Like, yeah, I guess just a week and a few days as of this recording. I better hurry up and edit this sucker.
Yeah. I need to remember to like pre-order it and remember that it's coming out.
And Kurt, you're just going to wait for the verdict?
I don't know. I'll probably buy it before I even try it just to get it. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, I don't know if I can get my wife to play it with me, or maybe I can go to Leo's place.
Yeah, come over, play.
And then you guys can do the 2v2, but you're each controlling 2 hands.
And we're each doing one of each faction, like
yeah. So it's competitive co-op.
Yes,
you will both win and both lose.
Competitive. There we go. All right. Well, if there's nothing else left to say, and I'm going to give you 5
Republic
seconds.
Card Game win.
Oh, I mean,
High Republic
anything win.
Any game win.
Oh man, that would be great. They should capitalize on that.
Steve.
Yeah.
Steve.
I mean, this is supposed to be the next big everything but a movie. So what the heck? No N64 game for High Republic yet? What is happening?
Come on, Steve.
No soundtrack.
Yeah, no epic soundtrack from what's his nuts. Okay.
John Williams.
John. No, it was a different guy. Let's see here. Nope, that's it. I'm cutting y'all off. Y'all had a chance. Thank you, Leo.
Bye.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, patrons, through whom all things are possible. We appreciate
Thank
you all.
you, Evan.
Oh, thanks for
Evan.
waiting for me to show up from my late dinner and coughing and hacking and dealing with cats. All right. The pits of despair. Thank you. Have a good night. We'll talk to you later after we get this game. Bye-bye.